It's good to see everyone here this morning. We want you to turn your Bibles, please, to the Old Testament book of Zechariah. I want to start where we ended last week of establishing what our concept is. We're looking at these 8 visions that Zechariah had in one night, but he'll have to be awakened during the night. The point is he's not going to sleep, but he changes from one vision to another, may be exhausted, but he was awakened again to see yet the end of the visions that we have. But we haven't got to that point yet. So the first 6 chapters are dealing with these visions, but they have a point. Let's remember the context. The people have come back to build the temple. They have the foundation established. They've let it go because they're doing what? They're building and renovating their own houses. And God deals with that. But there was discouragement. And what 2 prophets come along in order to encourage them? We studied Haggai. We just got through with him. And Zechariah comes on the heels of Haggai. But Zechariah has these visions. Well, just because it's a vision doesn't mean that we can escape the context and then we lose the whole meaning. There is discouragement even among the rulers. And so we have things that are set forth. We're dealing with the high priest, Joshua, but it's Zerubbabel, who apparently is discouraged. And what God does is that he sends his authoritative angel, the angel of Jehovah, among another angel or angels that are involved in the vision. There's a prophet, Zechariah, that is speaking. We've got to figure out who's speaking. We're trying to figure all of that out. And then there's the vision itself. And so we see here a vision in chapter 2, in the first 5 verses. We see a man with what's in his hand. It's a measuring line in his hand. And then said I, whither goest thou? So I lifted up my eyes, and I'm in this vision, and I'm asking the question, where are you going? And he said to me, to measure Jerusalem, to see what is the breadth thereof and what is the length thereof. You would do that with a physical city. You would do that with the kingdoms of the world. And what Zechariah is seeing here is that the angel of Jehovah is this other angel. Behold, the angel that talked with me went forth, and then we have another angel. I'm suggesting to you that's the angel of Jehovah. With all the authority of Jehovah, he speaks. And he says to the other angel, went out to meet him and said to him, run, speak to this young man. Who's the young man? I think it's the man with the measuring line, don't you? To this young man saying, Jerusalem shall be inhabited as villages without walls. By reason of what? We talked about this last time. Let's just establish it. What is the reason the angel of Jehovah, which I want to interpret it that way, whatever God's angel says, I want to look at it that way, and say it's going to be villages and it's going to be there without walls. Why?
Because there are so many people coming to it, the walls can't contain them.
That's right. Thank you for coming to class. That's exactly right. Right on time, too. So we see that's important. It's without walls. That takes us into a spiritual dimension that Zechariah is wanting to get the leaders to understand. Because what were they? We saw it in Haggai. We see it in Ezra. They're so disappointed that the new temple is not going to be as glorious as Solomon's. They're discouraged. That's why they don't want to be involved in rebuilding it. So Zechariah comes on after Haggai's already started the work. They're discouraged. And what he does is that God's temple has a glorious end greater than this. And he does it in terms to have villages without walls, because there's so many. We can't protect the border if we wanted to. It's just but people coming in. Now listen to the rest of this. By the multitude of men and cattle therein, for I said Jehovah will be unto her a wall. For I said Jehovah, that's why the angel is speaking with authority. The angel is speaking, this other angel, And he says, speaking with the authority of Jehovah, he said, I will be unto her a wall of fire, and round about, and I will be the glory in the midst of her. And we're going to see exactly what's going to happen now. He wants them to give heed to things following this. So we ask, what are the two, question number 11, what was the twofold message of the vision of the man with the measuring line? Don't measure it. That's not going to accomplish what measurement you have. And that's what disappoints you, because it's not as great as the other one. Don't do that. Don't think about that. Think about the future. That indeed the temple of Jehovah and God's people are going to be so numerous that walls couldn't contain them if you had them. And the fact that I will protect her, the glory will come to me. I will protect my people. And sometimes when we lose sight of the future glory of things, we may be disappointed and discouraged in the little details we're having to do now to stay faithful. And we have to be encouraged. And that's what is happening here. We talked about that. Now let's pick up with verse 6. When you hear ho ho, that's not Christmas, is it? My Bible says ho, it means heed, pay attention, listen. Ho, ho, flee from the land of the north, said Jehovah. For I have spread you abroad as the four winds of the heavens, said Jehovah. Ho, Zion, heed, Zion, escape thou that dwellest with the daughter of Babylon. I thought the people have already come back from Babylonian captivity. They have. But their heart's not here. They're dwelling with the daughter of Babylon. And I'm saying that realizing the other point is true. But I'm trying to figure out what is he's speaking to people that have left that, but their heart hasn't. They haven't got involved in doing this business of building my temple. That's what they came to do under Cyrus. And it says, for thus said Jehovah of hosts, after glory hath he sent me unto the nations which plundered you. For he that toucheth you toucheth the apple of my eye. We'll come back to that. For behold, I shake my hand over them, and they shall be a spoil to those that spread them, and ye shall know that Jehovah of hosts has sent me. Sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for lo, I come, and I will dwell in the midst of thee, saith Jehovah, and many nations shall join themselves, Jehovah, in that day, and shall be my people. Now I know it's spiritual Jerusalem. It is the multitude of people. He said, that's my people. That's my people. That's why I understand what he's saying. And it's the spiritual future that he wanted them to see. They will be my people. I will dwell in the midst of them, and thou shalt know that Jehovah of hosts has sent me unto thee. And so here we see the point that God can wave his hand over the nations. And I will shake my hand over them in verse 9. For thus said Jehovah of hosts, it said, after glory hath he sent me unto the nations. He's seeking after the glory among the nations because he's going to show that he is powerful. He's going to requite them. What did they do to his people? They plundered them. They took them off into Babylonian captivity. Don't stay dwelling with them in their heart. Change your heart. Zerubbabel all the way down to the workers. You get busy doing something because there's a future here that's important. This is just a step. And you fulfill what you're supposed to do. And don't you realize that when they touch you, they are touching the apple of his eye? I think we say that with a different meaning that is brought here. And there could be shades of meaning here, but here has a context. When you usually hear, she's the apple of my eye, what does that mean? Special? That's not what it means here. Oh, the eye is the gateway. There's the pupil of the eye, is a gateway into the mind and all that. And that can be special. And it's not that it's not special with God. But if I were to come out with a little, a toothpick and punch your eye, would that be painful? Would that hurt you? You flinch just to think about it, don't you? They've touched you. It's painful to me, and I'm requiting them for what they did to you. Isn't that the context? I will shake my hand, verse 8, for thus said Jehovah of hosts, after glory hath he sent me unto the nations which plundered you. For he that toucheth you toucheth the apple of my eye. For behold, I will shake my hand over them, and they shall be a spoil to those that serve them, and shall know that Jehovah of hosts has sent me. It's not that you're special. It's the fact that when they touched you, it hurt me. It hurt God. And I am going to requite them. And it's just a shake of a hand. He can do it. Just a shake of the hand. People say, I don't want to talk to you. Talk to my hand. And he has that kind of power. That's what I'm seeing is taking place here. Not that we don't, apple of my eye, you can hold that to you. But kind of look at context and realize that is also the gateway. Your eye is very painful when you touch it. And I'm going to pay them back. Why do you want to act like the nations? Why do you give in to enemies that may be around you, the nations around you, because they discourage you? Look beyond and see the glory that's going down the future. Now, they didn't see it. We're in it. You and I have been able to realize that here was that temple established where it was rebuilt. And we find that there was prepared a people for the coming of Jesus. And that temple is now, with Herod's glorious renovations, has been destroyed. And way back when? 70 AD. Has it been rebuilt yet? No. People are thinking it's going to be. We get the Muslims and the Jews together, we'll get it done. But what he did establish is that we're the temple of Jehovah. It's holy. Don't you mess with it. Don't you try to split God's people apart. And our individual bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit. Keep it holy. And that spiritual kingdom that was foremost in his mind, what is last in execution is foremost in the mind of God. Just watch him. He created the heavens, the earth. What did he do the seventh day? Man. His highest order of creation. He prepared all the things to prepare for man. And what is the last thing going to be executed by God? The resurrection from the dead and the ascension upon high. What is foremost in importance is last in execution. Everything is preparing for that. And he's trying to get them to see there's a glorious coming of that temple. And so we look at the last two verses when he says, and Jehovah shall inherit Judah as his portion in the Holy Land, and shall yet choose Jerusalem. Be silent, all flesh, before Jehovah, for he is weight up out of his holy habitation. He's coming in judgment upon the nations. They that plundered my people hurt me, and I will requite them. This we see here, we'll see this phrase used over and over again. For example, in chapter 1 and verse 17, yet comfort Zion, and shall ye choose Jerusalem. We see it here. We're going to see it in chapter 3 and verse 2. It's choose Jerusalem, rebuke thee, whom God has chosen. So he has chosen his people. And yes, he's already chosen Jerusalem way before this time, but it's the chosen. It's the chosen, and it pains him when you touch the apple of his eye. There's the pain aspect of it, that who is special. And that's why We get special out of that, but his context, he's hitting that. It's painful. And I am going to requite them. And it's going to be the nations. You be silent. So be silent, all flesh. We see that other passages. We sing a song. God is in his holy what? Temple, be silent. And it's the idea of reverence. And he's showing his power over nations. And what's going to happen? Those nations are going to come together and be God's people through whom? Jesus Christ. That was the eternal purpose. And that comes later in execution. All this is preparatory. But if you realize that you've got a work to do now that has this kind of future glory, you might want to get back to work and not fear what the nations will do to you. Any questions or comments on that before we get into chapter 3? All right. Our focus is upon whom in chapter 3? I thought Joshua was dead a long time ago. Is this a new Joshua? What do we know when they came back? He's Joshua the what? The high priest. And so we see this next vision. Let's read it together. He showed me Joshua, the high priest, standing before the angel of Jehovah. See, that's who's been in the company in these visions. He's the angel of Jehovah. And who's there with him? Satan. Standing at his right hand to be his adversary. The devil is an accusing one. Satan is the adversary who sits and accuses. Did he do that in Job's time? Accuses Job to God, and he accuses God to Job. He loves friction. He loves dividing and conquering. He likes to help people tell lies to divide people. That's just the way he works, and that's all he's got. And we have the wisdom of God to look through those things and not allow that to conquer us. But he is an adversary. He's standing by Joshua, and Joshua is the high priest. And Jehovah said unto Satan, Jehovah rebuke thee, O Satan. Yea, Jehovah that hath chosen Jerusalem rebuke thee. Is not this a brand plucked out of the fire? Does that remind you of something in Jude? We're trying to save people from sin. Sometimes we just have to pluck them out of the fire. We think of that, well, that's just a last resort and all that sort of thing. But what do we see here? It's like a trial. And on his right hand, this exalted right hand, is Satan saying, you're not so great. And bringing forth all the sins. Well, why did the people go into captivity? They sinned. Remember the high priest? They can't tell the difference between what's common and what's holy. They're not teaching my people. My people, Hosea says, are destroyed for a lack of what? Knowledge. Priest taught. And the prophets were prophesying for hire. The priests were not doing their work. And it goes to the top. It's not Joshua was without sin and Satan is rebuking thee. And God is defending a sinner. And what we see was the high priest connected with the people. If you want to broaden the scope of sin, the high priests were involved in the leadership and the teaching, but the people followed error. And they represented the people. The high priest went into the holy place representing the people of God. There was that connection between God and the high priest. And here is Joshua as a high priest and as representing the people high priest. Did he have sin? Yes. Because what does he have on? Joshua was clothed with filthy garments and was standing before the angel. He wasn't innocent. And he's standing before the angel. Adversary, that's a good, you got good information against me. But God is there. And God is saying, what about this chosen Jerusalem and the idea of, not this a brand plucked out of the fire. He's not saying that he wasn't a sinful person or the people that he represented were not sinful, but he can forgive, can't he? He can forgive. Satan doesn't like that. You can have a new beginning with me. And God's grace and forgiveness is what's happening. Satan, you can just accuse all you want to. But I plucked him out of the fire, and the people are plucked out as well. And he answered and spoke in verse 4 unto those that stood before him, saying, take the filthy garments from off him. Why can you take the filthy garments? Because I've forgiven him. There's a change of heart. They have seen the disciplinary action in captivity, and they're coming out and they're doing what I want to do, but they're discouraged in finishing the work that I want to do. And if you want to talk about their lack of holiness, God will be there with you. That's why they went into captivity. But he can forgive. Pluck the brand out of the fire. God can do that. And so you take the filthy garments off of him. And unto him he said, behold, I have caused thine iniquity to pass from thee. What is that? Forgiveness. And still clothe thee with rich apparel. Got a new beginning, Joshua. And so Zechariah gets carried away a little bit, doesn't he? And I said, let them set a clean myrtle or a turban upon his head. That's Zechariah talking. He'd take the filthy rags off. What was the headgear of a high priest? What was that gold band? What did it say? Holy unto Jehovah. He represented the people when he went into the holy place. And once you're into the most holy place. And there was that band. Holy unto Jehovah. No, you're filthy. That's Satan. No, I plucked him out of the fire. He's got clean clothes on because those things have passed from him. And Zechariah just, get that clean myrtle on that too. That turban. And they set a clean turban upon his head and clothed him with garments, and the angel of Jehovah was standing by. And the angel of Jehovah protested unto Joshua, saying, thus said Jehovah of hosts, if thou wilt walk in my ways. So there's responsibilities now. You've been forgiven, but now we pick up that. So what was symbolized by Joshua wearing filthy garments is his sin. As Isaiah says, it's like filthy rags. Our righteousness was as filthy rags. Put them off. We put them off in forgiveness. And if you really repent, look what you do. Priest, high priest. Responsibilities are there, and that's what they have to do. So what we see, that what symbolized Joshua is wearing filthy rags, and then got the clean turban on, because indeed they're going to be holy. And so we just ask again the question, why is Satan rebuked as he stands beside Joshua? When you read those other verses with what he said, brand plucked out of the fire, sins have passed away. You know, it's the picture of forgiveness. What a place to be before God with all of his holiness, but his grace is there to forgive us as a term. So verse 7, it says, if thou wilt walk in my ways, if thou wilt keep my charge, then also shalt thou judge my house, and shalt also keep my courts. I will give thee a place of access among them that stand by. You'll have access before my presence among other people. So that's why Satan is rebuked. And when you don't listen to Satan, when you stand before God and godly sorrow brings forth repentance, and you make a change as these people are making a change, want to build the temple of God and so forth, when you do that, Satan doesn't have anything to get his claws into. He can, you're a bad person. Well, I'm forgiven. And he's letting me start over again. I got clean clothes on now, despite your accusations. So there's that vision. And it's, Satan seems so powerful sometimes. He accuses us. He makes us feel like we're worthless. And he discourages us. And he had over a decade of discouraging these people, and the temple wasn't being built. I'm sure he liked that. But here comes the prophets. And it wasn't because, wow, what a vision. I think I'll get busy. No, the vision meant something. And it meant something to encourage them to get to work, and because they understood it, because as we're trying to get a hold of that, we find that becomes very important. So we see that's taking place. Verse 9, for behold, the stone that I've set before Joshua, upon one stone are 7 eyes. We've looked at the 7 eyes. What is that stone? Sometimes, well, that's a kingdom set before him, or it is indeed just a single stone. Well, Jesus Christ is that stone. Don't know what it was, but I tell you, 7 eyes were on that these things are going to be. I see these things. I see all the circumstances in life, and this is something that indeed will take place, which I think is the finishing stone of the temple. You have a chief cornerstone that's laid, but that finishing stone, Zerubbabel is going to put it on. It's going to be put on there. And 7 eyes throughout, showing his providential care and what he sees, all things, is going to take place. And we'll see that a little bit later about a stone. But our 7 eyes, behold, I will engraven the graving thereof, said Jehovah of hosts, and I'll remove the iniquity of that land in one day. As he looks into future glory of God's dealing with his people, with sin removed in one day. When the kingdom was established, whether if the stone is referring to a kingdom, out of a mountain a kingdom is established, well, that was established, and one day people were forgiven of their sins in one day. In that day, saith Jehovah, shall ye invite every man his neighbor under the vine and under the fig tree. So we ask and question, well, we'll come back, we'll get back to the branch in just a moment. Let me go. What twofold blessing is connected with the branch coming? So, and the stone being set, which is kind of the capstone of these things. And we'll pick that up again. What do we see in verse 10? In that day, Jehovah of hosts, shall ye invite every man his neighbor under the vine and under the fig tree. Verse 9, I'll remove the iniquity of that land in one day. So what 2 blessings come, and we'll come back and get the branch. What 2 blessings come from the work from the branch, and what's going to take place to that? What's going to happen? Salvation, sins will be removed in one day, so sins are being removed. And what happens when sins are removed? You have peace with God. And you can have peace with nations. Because we're all under one God. And that's the context we've been looking at. And so you'll invite every man his neighbor under the vine and under the fig tree. That is a picture from the prophets of being at peace. We can sit under the shade and talk a little bit. We can have a conversation. We're not warring anymore. And when you look at Isaiah 11, let's identify who is the branch that God would bring forth. Who is this offshoot that will come? Who is it? It's Jesus Christ. And he will be the offshoot of David and David's lineage in Isaiah 11. And you'll look at that indeed there will be no war, and the animals will be at peace. It's the idea of peace, just like here he talks about the vine and so forth, and the fig tree and so forth that's taking place. And so there's the coming of the branch. And let's pick up when he says about that. Verse 8, Jehovah the high priest, and now, O Joshua the high priest, thou and thy fellows that sit before thee, as his fellow priests, for they are men that are a sign. For behold, I will bring forth my servant, he's always the servant, my servant the branch. So you are signifying something that is going to be coming. Was Jesus our high priest? Is he our high priest now? Yes, he is. And they're going to be a sign of now a righteous priesthood, a priesthood that is holy unto Jehovah. Let me tell you your future glory. The temple has its future glory, but you have your future glory as the coming of the branch, my servant. Here's the offshoot. For behold, the stone that I've set before Joshua, upon one stone are 7 eyes. Behold, I will engrave the graving thereof, said Jehovah of hosts, remove the iniquity. We're going to see about a stone, which Zerubbabel will replace. But I think the stone before him is that here is God's providential care. He sees all. He brings it all to pass. And it's going to be standing before him. And there will be the forgiveness of sins for the people, just like he's forgiven Joshua, plucked him out of the fire, and we'll have peace. And is it Jesus Christ our peace as well? Just to nail this down, and we'll come back to it in detail, if you turn me to chapter 6, in verse 12, it says, Speak unto them, saying, Thus speaketh Jehovah of hosts, saying, Behold, the man whose name is the branch, he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of Jehovah. That's what this branch will do. Even he shall build the temple of Jehovah, and he shall bear the glory, and shall sit and rule upon his throne. He shall be a priest upon his throne, and the counsel of peace shall be between both. There's not going to be a division between priest and king, king and priest. That's why you sit on your vine tree with your neighbor. There's the concept of peace. But who is priest and king at the same time? It's Jesus Christ, isn't it? David, you want to say something else? Yeah, and that's the part of being eternal, isn't it? No beginning or end. No, that's very true. So we see these prophecies of Zechariah is going to come after again on the branch, but this will be this offshoot, something that's been growing from this place, from God's people, Jesse, David, and that is going to be that. And so this stone being set before Joshua's God's providential care, you can build upon this, and Jesus is going to build the temple through his death and his resurrection, and that becomes pretty important. Any questions on? We got that. We did that. Now let's get into the lamps. Have you ever, when you look at this candlestick, is it like what Moses had in the tabernacle? Is it like what Solomon had when he constructed the temple? This is an interesting candlestick. It's not like either one of those, but it's a vision. You can have strange things in a vision, and you got to realize these are strange things. But what would they symbolize? And depending on what translation you have, you'll have a different view of that. But have you ever seen pictures of people trying to draw this? It looks like one of our refineries out here. It's just pipes going everywhere. The angel that talked with me came again and waked me as a man that is awakened out of his sleep. We didn't emphasize this, but we live a lot of times hearing about woke. Are you woke? Well, who's woke? In chapter 2, Jehovah, for he has waked up out of his holy habitation. I don't want to be on the opposite side of him being woke. But he's waked up. He's awake. He's ready to go on behalf of his people. So don't be discouraged. I will take care of the nations around us. But here is this, he waked me again. So he's exhausted about what he's seeing. So he may have been overcome with sleep, exhausted with that. And by the way, the transfiguration of Jesus, and Jesus is transfigured and is so bright. Who went to sleep in Luke 9:32? Peter did. And the disciple with him. They went to sleep at Jesus' transfiguration. Don't tell me they're bored. They were overcome with sleep. They were very tired. And he could have been so tired with these visions and understanding and what it all means. He had to be awakened, had to be aroused again. So he does. That's what happens. What seest thou? And he said, I have seen, behold, a candlestick, all of gold, with its bowl. So I got a candlestick, and the bowl is where? Is on top of it, and it's 7 lamps. Now I got a picture of that candlestick with 7 lamps. But I got a bowl up here, and the 7 lamps they're on. There are 7 pipes to each of the lamps. Now your translation doesn't say that, maybe. Wonder if mine's true. Every one of these 7 lamps, how many pipes are going to it? 7, 7, 7, 7. That's why it becomes a refinery when you see pictures. But let's just say there's only 1 pipe for every lamp. That would be a little bit better. And some of your translations indicate that. So we really don't know that, but what we can realize, hey, light's not going to go out because of the lack of source of oil. You got a big reservoir, a bowl here, and there's pipes furnishing all the lamps. That's why I think 7 lamps 7 pipes for every lamp may be true. And that's what he said. So what do we see next? There are 7 pipes to each of the lamps, which are upon the top thereof. So there's the source, eventually bringing life. And 2 olive trees by it. One up on the right side of the bowl and the other up on the left side. So you have 2 olive trees. What comes out of an olive? David?
Olive, but they use refined olive oil to feed the lamp.
Yeah. But it doesn't say they are pressed. It doesn't say, it just says olive trees. But we put together, realize, well, he's not trying to show the pressure. He's just showing the source. You will never run out of oil for these lamps. You got a big old bowl. You got 2 olive trees on each side. You got piping there for each lamp, plenty of light. It's not going to go dark because the source is continually there. Source is continually there. That's why some of you have tankless water heaters. Tankless water heaters. What is that? Don't you want continuous hot water? Now, it may take 5 minutes for it to get there if you got a big old house. But eventually, you will never run out of hot water. The source will always keep making it. And that's what we see here. I think that's the point. I know our time is short, but what is the meaning of the 7 lamps being supplied all in 7 pipes? Is that there's going to be continuous light for them to have the light of truth, and they will not run out of that. And we'll have to stop there. Any questions on that? I ask you what it looks like. How would you describe it, David? I mean, what do you want to say?
And also, the number 7 consistently means completeness, so the light will be complete.
That's right. That's right. Well, we'll go into more depth when we have more time. But thank you for your comments.